Don't feel
So when you actually press record, it records.
right. There we go.
Yes, welcome to She Is Magazine, the February edition. I am so honored to have some of my lovely friends, some of God's good people, Akatunde and his wife, EUNISSA. I'm going to allow them to properly introduce themselves, but we go way back from Savannah, Georgia. I didn't have the privilege of attending school and cutting up with Akatunde. He went to school with my sisters. I chose the better of the schools in Savannah, Georgia, in the Chatham County Public School System. Shout out to Savannah High, 500 Washington Avenue. But I'm so honored to have y'all. Look, it's Love Month, it's Valentine's Day. We're gonna have a healthy discussion with Akatunde and his beautiful wife, but I'm gonna pause and allow them to introduce themselves. Y'all take it away.
All right. Well, I'm Akatunde, and
I'm EUNISSA.
And we've been married for 26 years.
Yay, shout out to the covenant for 26 years.
Yeah, 26 years.
Yes, I've been tolerating them.
She's been tolerating me, putting up with me for 26 years. We've been
longer than that.
We've been together almost 30 years.
Wow.
So
yes.
we had an interesting journey. Interesting, but most people know me as a comedian, or they know me, from radio or podcasting. And EUNISSA now, what most people don't know is that EUNISSA and I have been working together behind the scenes for, I guess now, almost 20 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so wow. She's been my manager, booking agent, co-producer. She takes all my ideas, she gets them used before anybody else does. And we've been working together either in producing or management for quite some time. So we run two companies, WF Media Group and the Assignment Agency. And I lead WF Media Group. She leads the Assignment Agency. And I don't have anything to do with bookings. Just for the fact, was one of the. I just want to put that out there. Just one of the.
Don't inbox you.
No, well, not like that, but. But for the other side of it is, I, as a comedian, it's a conflict of interest for me to be involved in somebody else's booking. I always thought. So she's there. So for the other artists that she books, like I very rarely know anything about it. She does all the contracts.
I'm the contract person.
Yeah. But that's that. I always thought that has really worked for us because there's a total separation in that regard.
Well, you can't negotiate contracts for yourself.
No,
at least as an artist, you should.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah,
that was free, y'all. That was free advice. They out here giving free game.
And I know you want to be an artist that's looking at other people's contracts. Like, well, how much they get? Why they get that? Well, I only get, that. So you have to, so is that helps me in my side. But yeah, so I'm sorry, I went down a rabbit trail there. But
okay, remember we said we're gonna let this flow.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So, but yeah, we've been working together for quite some time. We have 5 children. Just graduated the last one this past school year. Bam! Yes. So we now officially have 5 adult children.
What are their ages?
They are 28. Ooh. Yes, 26, almost 27, 25, almost 26, 21, and 19.
Oh, see, that to him because a lot of times he's like,
he did good. I think he practiced.
Yeah, I really get him if I say what's their birthdays.
Let's see, you wrong. You wrong. That is petty. That's petty.
I remember. I'm like,
don't do that. That is so petty. When you know somebody in the area, you're gonna throw them a behind the back pass in the middle of a conversation. That's terrible.
That is cool. So, I mean, five kids, thriving business, thriving marriage, and we're just gonna jump in right there. I have some, like I said, I have some notes, but being married 26 years cannot be easy. Now, I've seen your stand up quite a few times, and I've heard you talk about arguing with the lawyer's number in your pocket. The divorce lawyer in your pocket. And I want to talk about, when we talk about vows and, the for better or for worse and the things that we recite and that we've heard over and over, sat in audiences and, heard people recite those. And I know for me, I'm sitting in the audience like, y'all really don't know the road that's ahead of you. Not in a cynical way, but you know, there's life beyond the wedding. There's so much, there's just so much beyond the wedding. So let's talk about the for better or for worse. And you know, how do you get to 26 years? Now I know this is gonna be a 30-minute conversation, but we need to help the people.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you get to how what are some nuggets to get you to 26 years?
Well, first I want to just interject and pause and say that I graduated from Soul C. Johnson.
My daddy and my mama are Adam Smashers, so I know some Smashers out there. My daughter went to Johnson, yeah.
The Adam Smashers are in the house, okay?
Right.
So
only the worst school mascot ever in the history. What is an Adam Smasher?
Because
What is
we're
that?
smart. We were the smart people, okay? I was a biology major in college, my first college that I went to before.
She met me
Before I met him.
and diverted her life.
And had to come back. So I wound up graduating from Armstrong, which is now Georgia Southern.
Yes.
But yeah. So we were the smart people.
Whatever. Went as far as Knights for Life. But to answer the question, Michelle.
Well, let me answer.
Go ahead.
Because he's always got the voice. Because like you said, you heard him on Clubhouse.
And I use it too. I be talking trash.
And I have that in my notes too. I'm glad you kind of segued into that. So when you tell me about that, tell me about how it is being married to somebody who's always out front, who always has the voice, you know, who's always talking.
Yeah.
In and out.
Yeah.
Inside the house. I mean, it took some getting used to in the beginning because he does put his life on stage, which I think what makes him original because he's talking about stuff that's happening to him. And it's not general comedy, so it's comedy for everyone. But I will say that in the beginning, you know, getting used to my business being put out there, I had to tell him some points. Don't use real people's names. He would use early on. He would
still do that sometimes. Yeah.
I warned him not to do that. He would use real people's names.
Real people's names.
Yeah.
On the album.
The names don't get changed to protect the innocent.
Well, they're supposed to. Get lost in their comedy and they forget. And so, you know, it took some, and then of course, as the kids got older, I had to, you know, prepare them. You know, Dad talks about us on stage. You know, some of the things that, you know, I had to say, hey, don't put junior stuff out there like that. You know, don't put baby girl stuff out there like that because, you know, he thinks it's funny, but they're still working through it. So it's like you better get delivered, you better get set free because your daddy about to put it on
fast.
Either tell the joke or be the joke. That's the rule.
See, he's like, this is how we pay the bills.
That's right. Y'all eat off your
contribution. It's your contribution. I'm like, okay.
That's your contribution. I love it.
Yeah. So, you know, for me, it's been a process. Of course, working with/for whatever, you know, him was a process because when we moved here, I just given birth to our last child. And he was only 3 months old. And then the one right before him was only 1.5, 2.
Right. So,
you know, my kids were like stair steps. And so for me, it was a process of putting on a shelf the things that I prepared for myself. Right. Because when I got pregnant, I was 19.
Yeah.
So I was biology major, scholarship. My school teacher mother was not very happy.
Right.
And so, you know, it was me having to redact, you know, not just my life literally, but just my thinking in order to be able to live in that and not be resentful or bitter and just be like, he's chasing his dream. And you know, because those thoughts come, you know, particularly because you're so young. Yeah. But to kind of fold into what the vision he had, because he's full of vision, so full of vision. Lord him. Men who don't have no vision, like that would not be my testimony. Because mine has no lack of vision.
Right. That's awesome.
Vision for me, vision for everybody.
I don't know how I feel.
Gotta be a dog, everybody.
And so, you know, for me, it was just a process and we grew up together because we were so young. Right. So it's a little bit different than I guess, you know, and that's why I encourage my young adult children, you know, particularly my daughters, because they're my girls.
Yes.
You know, come into who you are. Obviously, you're going to evolve as a woman, as a man, going to evolve as a person over, like he always says on stage, you get every 10 years,
version.
you get a new version of your spouse.
Yeah.
That's true.
But, you know, come into who you are to some degree before you become a wife, before you become a husband, before you become a mother or a father, because your life completely becomes not about you anymore.
Absolutely.
About that union and then the offspring that come out of that. So
I think that's probably where we how we stayed together, and it's because we recognize it wasn't about us.
right.
So I think about at different pockets of life, we recognize it wasn't about us. Before it was, and when I say about us, I mean individually us. I think because that's when you really get down to it, if you really want to get down to it, the majority of reasons why marriages end, not all, but the majority of the reasons why marriages end is because somebody or both people decided, I'm not willing to change. And I'm not willing to do what's required to have a healthy relationship. Now, and whether that's stop cheating or stop talking to you that way or spend time with you, whatever that is. But so for her and I think it was always something else that it was about along the way. Probably initially, if we being honest, it was about the children. And so we had to work on each other. And then for me, if I say selfishly, it was about, I was so attracted to her that I didn't want to see somebody else with her. So then whatever I need to do to keep her, then I was willing to do that. And so I think that as we go,
that was like snap worthy.
But
so fine, I ain't want nobody else to have you either.
But I think, but guess what? There's a little bit of selfishness in that too.
Yeah.
Because I'm saying also too is I want you so much, I don't want somebody else to have it. But that doesn't necessarily mean I'm saying I want to be the best man that you need me to be, so I can grow into that. So I think that process has come over time where you learn, no, you need to be better because you need to be better, not just because you want to be the best or have the best this or keep her. So
right,
I think
because that's temporary.
Right.
If it's not done if the change is not true change and is done in the moment
for the right reasons.
Right. Well, for the wrong reasons, if it's done in the moment for the wrong reasons,
right,
it's temporary.
Right.
It won't last. And you'll cycle back into the same whatever the issue was to begin with.
Right. And I think that's been the biggest thing. Something we came not too long ago was it's like a saying. If you're going to get divorced, if you're going to change, you're going to, ideally, most people don't get divorced thinking I don't ever want to be married again.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes that does happen, but most people leave thinking that, right? So when you go into your next relationship, the average person is going to change some stuff. The average person, when you really get down to it, this probably will bless somebody. When you really get down to it, you're not going to talk to your second husband or your second wife the way you did because you recognize, that was just. And I was too prideful to admit that I need to talk better or respond better or do better or spend more time with them. So you're going to make those adjustments, or at least try to make those adjustments as you go into your next relationship. Well, here's the key. Do that in the new relationship. Do that in your current relationship.
Yes.
If you know that you need to change and talk to people better, then work on yourself in your current relationship. Make the shift, make the change. And I think that's probably, when I say we get a different version of each other, that's good and bad. There's some change, there's some negative stuff that has come with the new versions of each other over the past 10 years, but there's also some maturation that has come over the last, and you're like, okay, all right, I can't do that. I can't say that way. And I think that's probably that's what been the benefit of how we stay together. People always want, like, whenever we're asked that question, they want this really beautiful marital textbook answer. The truth is, the part of it is just not quitting. I'm not gonna quit. I might be mad, and we always say there's real talk both times in our marriage that both of us want to get divorced. It just was never at the same time. So that's been what's kept us, because she might want to leave at some time, but I was like, no. Or I was trying to, or I could sense she tripping, and I'm like, okay, let me act right, do right, and vice versa.
It was divorce. I was just like, bro, I'm about to be out.
I'm about to get me an apartment.
Right.
Let me ask you this, because y'all, y'all have had the fortunate pleasure of working together, not only in marriage, but in ministry and in work. And there are some situations where this isn't ideal, whether it be a pastor and his wife, or so my question is, how do people navigate when they both have dreams, and instead of aligning, their dreams collide?
Wow. Man, I think that's something that we probably haven't done successfully. I think it's been sacrificed. I think UNISSA has done most of the sacrifice in that regard. And I think, like, just in the past 2 to 3 years, she's doing more of what is in alignment with what she originally wanted to do, which is, I mean, she's operating, she started a career, I guess you could say. And then now that career it started off as like a contractual thing, like a short-term contract thing that really blown up. And now she's become a major part of a company that's a pretty, that has some like serious contracts. And she's still running the assignment agency, but she has a full other slate of responsibility that's major. Like, it's like she's an executive, to a degree in that organization. That said, like, I'm seeing her blossom and flourish, and I'm like, wow, I'm seeing her do things that, I knew she could do it, but to be honest, I don't know if she fully knew that she could do it. She's doing it on a whole other level. I say it that way. It was always in her. Of course, she had the degree, but I think because she spent so much time focusing on kids and me, that was her full life. That there were some things that she didn't have time to do. That now, because our children are older, because we're older, we're in a different part of life.
And because we make some decisions.
Right.
So, since I started working at the top of the pandemic when everything shut down. Right. I'm a contractor, and it just, I moved from one contract to another, and it just evolved. And so I think, through communication, because I said, I would like to just try, falling back a little bit, particularly in WF Media. Right. Primarily him and my son in the leads on that, and just try being more your wife, because we have dwelled so much in that framework of business partners that we have struggled, like, to focus on specifically, like, we get off, so we're gonna go spend time alone, and we wind up talking about the kids, or we talking about business. Right.
That's so hard. I mean, it's so hard sometimes to separate. And that's why a lot of times when people's kids do grow up and they leave, it's like there's nothing, because you haven't built a relationship. I mean, it's always, I'm mama, I'm taking kids someplace, I'm picking somebody up, always giving service to somebody else, where, this unit and this thing that we have, what's our thing? I was talking to somebody the other day, and it's like, I know what my thing is and his thing is, but what is the things that are ours, that's sacred. I have a friend of mine, and she's in the real estate business as well. And she's like, Saturdays, the weekends belong to her husband. She's like, don't call me. Don't ask me about no contract. Don't do none of that. This time belongs to my husband. So I think that is really, that takes a lot of discipline, honestly, because when that hotline bling, it's the money phone, a lot of times, like, I gotta, it's an opportunity, but that takes a lot of discipline and sacrifice. So, so how are y'all, like, literally, how are y'all handling the separation? Like, you don't lay in the bed and go, we got to do such and such.
You mean, when you say separation, you mean
separation of the two,
the business and the relationship. Like, we just talking about, what you want to eat. Let's go to the movies, that kind of thing.
Right. I think it's being, like you said, it's being intentional. Yeah, it's being deliberate.
We're still working together, so, I've fallen back on a lot of stuff, and he has more staff, but it's, it takes intentionality. Yeah. It takes, us kind of making a decision that, and scheduling, saying this is what we're going to do at this time. Yeah. Don't plan anything else. And it does take some growth, because it's, we've been doing it a certain way for 30 years. And then all of a sudden we're like, okay, we're gonna shift.
Well,
So,
if you're being honest, for many years, we blended everything.
everything.
Like we blended work, ministry, parenting, blended money.
The kids would be on the road with
everything.
us, they'd be packaging up product,
Right.
you know, so everybody was all hands on deck.
It was
So
all hands
we
on
blended
deck.
everything. And so that separation, I think part of it is coming from the kids, because the kids are like, they have their own lives.
Right.
They're
So
like,
they're not,
we ain't working for free no more.
right.
Right.
That part too. And so they're just gone. You know, they have boyfriends and they have businesses and they have lives and you know, and they're just gone. And so it's like,
you got jobs, they have
other
focuses. And I think for her, and I think we've learned to think about 10 years down the road. Where do we 10 years down the road? Not just financially, not just geographically, not just physically, but also how do we want to be maritally? What do we want to be in our relationship? What kind of relationship we want to have? And if you want to have a successful relationship, it takes work. I think that's the biggest thing. Like you mentioned, after the marriage, after the ceremony, right? After the wedding, you said. Well, the reason that takes work to be successfully married for any extended period of time. And here's the thing: you can be married but unsuccessfully married.
Absolutely.
You can be married and hate each other, or married and beating on each other, or married and cussing each other out.
Married and she's sleeping in the she shed.
Like
I told him I was going to do.
Right. She, like, I'm gonna go sleep up. Right.
I'm gonna fix my she shed up and go sleep downstairs.
What you?
But I think you learn to manage and learn to say, okay, if you being truthful, honest, and being intentional, it's like, hey, I love this woman. I don't want to be in this space where we don't like each other, or we're not spending time with each other, or we're drifting apart. And you have to be that part takes work.
It takes work.
Because it takes tough work. I mean, it takes
work every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you're working on not being, especially if you're working on not being, or being different, or evolving into this better place. Yeah. It takes that, you know, because your default setting is, I'm going to continue doing what I was doing.
Right.
And so every day it takes, so like, you know, yesterday, you know, since we're talking about it, he shared with me how he didn't like something I said or how I said it. And I told him, I apologize. I did realize, you know, after the fact, but he was gone the whole next day. And I recognized that when we talk about our, you know, the things that we're working through in terms of communication, areas, if you will, I know that takes him mentally somewhere else if he's working. So I'm like, so I told him, I said, you know, hey, you know, what are you doing tomorrow? He was like, why? I was like, you know, I want to spend some time with you. Part of that was because I wanted to talk to him and I wanted to say, okay, I could have handled that better.
Yeah.
You know, I could have done that better. You know, I recognize that really wasn't about you. That was really me in my head trying to, you know, switch off this thing where I kind of take over and, you know, but I'm like trying to fall back.
That's good.
Trying to fall back, you know, and that's hard because, you know, not just because that's my propensity, but because he's allowed me to do that at times when I just like, he knew he could throw the ball to me. I have been a vision runner. So he knew he could throw the ball. I feel, you know, come on, baby, I got it. Let's go. Right. But, you know, two things happen. One, that starts to wear on me physically as a woman. Right. As a person, you know, it starts to wear on you because if you know, it's 6 other people that you're kind of managing, and then businesses and all the other stuff. And so, and then for me, it was, I really want to take some time and get to know who EUNISSA is. I've been a wife, I've been a mother. Right. So who am I as EUNISSA, just this individual? So that's been what we've been doing here, but it takes me every single day getting up and saying, okay. And then sometimes every hour, because my, you know, I'm working on my job and then I see a booking request come through. Right. And my default setting is, I'm gonna see what's in the, okay, I'm gonna take a break and call. Yeah. I'm trying to find balance, you know, because it's like not too much. Right. But yeah, so. And then the intentional part of it is for me, just on the business side, I've hired 2 other people. So I have a new executive assistant who handles those things. And I also have a new person who handles all my social media.
So in my marketing. So that's the intentional part of it. So that creates a little bit more distance between the business and our relationship. And then it is being key and learning the new versions of each other. I just turned 50. So there is it. So
It's a wonderful point in life.
It's a wonderful point.
It's like, it's a vibe. It's a whole vibe.
It's a mindset. And it's like, so things, we be honest, things I would have put up with 10 years ago, I don't put up with anymore. So we have to talk that through. Right, exactly. We have to talk that through and manage that out and balance it out. And see, that's the challenge. Because if you're not careful, then 50 is like I see people do it all the time. If you're 50, you're feeling yourself. And if you feeling yourself to the degree that you're not feeling your spouse anymore. Then what happens is distance, and that's going at some point that's going to disintegrate. It just is what it is. So
that's a good point you made.
The biggest part of it is being intentional through transitions, being intentional through the process, loving each other, respecting each other, and then considering each other, and even considering each other before ourselves. I'll tell you one last thing, and then I'll let you go to your next question. One thing that God said to me not too long ago is probably a couple of years ago. He says, yeah, don't focus on what she said, how she acted, or how she responded. What did you do? What did you say? And it really was, and it's almost like what he said to me was, I got her. That's not your child. That's my child. I'll deal with her. You deal with you. You did A, B, C, and D. Oh, what's your heart? Not even what you did sometimes. It's what's your heart. Your heart was A, B, C, and D. You work on that and let me work on her.
EUNISSA, thank you for being transparent a moment ago. I know sometimes as alpha women, like you say, you throw me something, I'm just, so and sometimes, our mouths kind of get way out there and, in us handling a thing. It does. It does.
Yes, it does.
But just the fact, just you being willing to empathize for his situation and how that affected his workspace and his mental space. I think a lot of the, the give and take in marriage and the ebbs and flows, if you will, I think that's the part that people don't understand. And they get stuck in and throw all the cards and say, hey, this ain't for me. We got irreconcilable differences and, all these other things that are really, really great excuses. But something you said that was just, monumental to me is that decision every day. You make that the only way you make it to 26 is if you don't quit. Now that will preach, period. If you don't quit, there's so many people that quit. And I posted something a while back about the middle, and the middle that being that processing time. Nobody likes the middle. The middle is uncomfortable. The middle is uncertain. Nobody likes the middle seat on the airplane. It's like, that middle spot is so hard to navigate, but we have to also understand that God is a God of the beginning, the ending. Right. Yes, he said he was the Alpha and Omega, but he is the God of the middle, and he's always working the middle for us. And that's where we kind of tend to faint, because we know what the beginning looked like, and we know we know what we want the ending to look like. But because of the uncertainty in the middle, we can't figure out the conclusion. We can't quite put our finger on it. So instead of waiting to the conclusion of the matter, we quit right there in the middle.
We quit in the middle. Yeah.
So that's just so unfortunate. And y'all been giving some good stuff. What legacy y'all operate in, from the outside looking in, people may look and, wonder. Now you ain't got to wonder. They told you how you do it. Mm-hmm. So what is your legacy? What are you building for your children's children? What do you want people to say in your eulogy?
Wow, man. I know for me as a man, that's something that I've thought about a lot, as of late in probably the last few years. Mm-hmm. And I think how long ago did we form WF Media Group?
It's been about 4 or 5 years.
About 4 or 5 years ago, we formed WF Media Group, which stands for Warnock Family Media Group. Mm-hmm. And the desire for me was, I recognized I can't pass my touring schedule on to my children. So I can't tell you, say, hey, take these 120 dates and do them the next 5 years and go and take these jokes and tell them. I was like, no, I gotta build a company and build an entity that they, if they so choose, they can either work in, or they can grow, or they can sell. And so that really started me to focusing on building what I call a content library of actual property. We own either 100% or 50% of everything that I've ever recorded. But what that's we generate income from it. We literally treat it like digital real estate.
Yes.
A book for us is a piece of digital real estate. So we then lease that out to Sirius XM or Pandora or YouTube, and then they pay us a rental fee or a royalty fee. And then through that whole process, and then licensing our television content. I mean, EUNISSA literally, I call it hand distributed a Christmas special one year, because she literally got on the phone, but phone call by phone call, market by market, television by television, and got a Christmas special that we produced clear in these individual TV markets. So, and she's negotiated contracts, and and it was challenging. I mean, we'd be on the phone sometime, like negotiating. She's sweating, I'm writing stuff on a piece of paper. It's crazy. But I'm talking about USA Network, BT, these major platforms that we've done business with. And that's the legacy. That's the company. So that's really what began WF Media Group. So for us, it's about creating content that edifies God, that draws the world to Christ, and then entertains, services, and inspires and encourages the body of Christ. And then we're able to profit from that content by distributing it and licensing it and leveraging it in a way that makes sense. So, I always say we have some tangible real estate and other holdings that we're creating and building and growing. Then we also have digital real estate and holdings that we're creating and growing. And that's legacy outside of our family.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. I did have this written on the paper. What was your dream? Like, what was your dream life when you was in Windsor Forest and you were over there at Johnson? I mean, what was your dream? I know for me, my when I think back now, I'm like, my life is nothing like, how it began.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what did that dream look like? And, how did you arrive at this point to I believe, what looks like you're living your dream?
Why you go first?
Well, I mean, for me, I was, like I said, I was a biology major, and I went to Payne College. And so
what was your career field? What were you going to do? What did you want to
go right across the Medical College of Georgia? I had it all planned, right across the street, I'm a physical therapist. And get my doctorate in physical therapy. And so that was the plan. Okay. But I was being fast, running back and forth.
You were in intense fellowship, sis.
Right. Fellowship. And this one right here, he kept drawing me back to Savannah on the weekend when Mama didn't know. And so we got pregnant with my first one, my oldest son. And, for me, my life then really, honestly, when I think back on it, it took on purpose. Because then it was about, this person, and then he got a brother right behind him. So quick. So it was about these people. And so, I was pregnant for about 10 years straight. So
I did it the wrong way. I was pregnant every 10 years. All wrong. Like, I would not suggest that. I mean, like,
oh my God.
I love it. Every 10 years.
Oh, wrong, y'all. No, like, and the average was like every 12 years. I'm like,
wow.
Go ahead, but don't do it like I did it. Y'all got it right.
Yeah, mama time.
Right. Yeah. But So, the trajectory for my life changed with me becoming a mother.
Right.
Because we weren't married when we had, the first two. We weren't married. And so, for me, it was, what do I want to do? And so my father, initially I'd said, I want to use, my degree was in health service administration. I wanted, in gerontology, I wanted to build these long-term care facilities because my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at 51. Subsequently died at 58. And so, I was like, I was going to enact, lobby for new legislation because I watched how my mother, struggled to take care of my father. If you have anything, the government tries to come in and take it if you want to get assistance with, taking care of your loved one who has the needs. But at any rate, for me, I think Akintunde was like, I need your help. And I'm that chick, I'm gonna hold you down. So like, I need your help because he got saved. And he was like, I'm gonna fire all these people. And everybody was, what are y'all gonna do? How y'all gonna, I had all kind of people calling me, agents and club owners saying, what are you guys gonna do? Because he was making 6 figures in clubs.
Yeah.
Oh, they were like, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna feed all those kids? And I was like, care of us. I just kept saying, God, I'm gonna take care of us. That's what God told him to do, because God told him to come out of clubs altogether. And so he just stopped. And so I was like, okay. So we were riding.
He just stopped.
He stopped.
Right.
He just stopped.
Right.
But yeah, like we finished out our contractual obligation.
Right. Or everything else on the books.
And he stopped. And so we were like, okay. And so I literally became proficient. It evolved into, where I became, it really taught me how to speak and how to argue and articulate, so I learned that from you. He doesn't necessarily like that when I'm using it on him,
but it comes back on.
Right. But I learned how to tell his testimony. I became proficient in giving his testimony because BET was still running his,
cussing comments.
His cussing comments. I was trying to find another way to say it, but they were still running his stuff while he had already gotten saved.
Yeah.
It was years, but they were still running it. And we were trying to get him booked in churches.
Right.
And there was no framework for it. Jonathan Slocum was the only person I'd ever seen do that.
Oh, yeah.
It was all really Christian comedy per se.
Right.
And so, for me,
they were calling it clean comedy, right?
It was clean comedy, and then it was Christian comedy, but most of the fact of it is most of the Christian comedians were white guys.
Right.
And so it was a whole other.
It was Jonathan and Broderick Rice.
Right. And so
Cantaloupe, right. There was only 3. And so, people would still see him on TV. Right. He'd gotten a name and, on that side. And I'm just, but this is who now, and he's a father, and I just became proficient in doing that. So that's how I evolved. That's how I shifted from that, because then it became purposeful. I'm like, no, I need, it became like this mission to convince people that he's not that person you see on TV. This is how God has changed.
Wow.
And so he just kind of took it from there, and I'll say life for me, life happened. I just rolled with it because it was, it's been an adventure with him.
And I'll say for me, in terms of living my dream, to answer your question about that dream at Windsor Forest, I had 2 dreams. One dream was I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I thought I would go to Savannah State, and I would go to New York, NYU, and then the dream was I want to be the best barber in the world. And so one dream was active. The other dream still had to be obtained. And so when we got pregnant with our first son, it was like that kind of blew up both of our lives. I mean, so I
blow it up.
Well, I mean, I'm giving context. So it did for me, it was a bomb that went off in my life because it was a bomb of responsibility.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget sitting in front of Candler Hospital on the day that my oldest son was born. I was sitting out front. I was smoking a cigarette, and your father walked up. He walked up. He was like, how it feel, son, to have a son. I was like, I don't know. It feels great because I'm looking at this little life that was so beautiful that I love, but it was the weight of responsibility. And truth be told, with all of that, the best thing that could have ever happened to me as a man was that I met my wife and that I had my children. Why? Because it made me responsible in a way that I would not have been. I can guarantee you if I wasn't married, because every dollar had a purpose. I never forget, we would get paid nice little sums of money on the road when I was coming up as a comedian. And I'm talking about a few $100s, which a few $100s per night, when you really think about it.
Right, in the 80s.
Right. Well, in the early 90s, you 20-some years old, that's good money.
Yeah.
And people are like, man, let's go to the strip club. I'm like, man, take me to the hotel. Okay, because I gotta wire all this money back in the morning to pay the electric. Like,
So don't get cut off.
So it cut off. So I'm talking about, I got to get up and be at Western Union 7 o'clock.
It wasn't no cash out there. Wasn't no cash out.
No, oh my God.
You had to go to the Western Union. Yes.
What no cash out? You got to go to Western Union and fill out a form and then and then think about, well, how much is the wiring fee against how much of we pay the electricity bill, and then I still need to eat. And I still need, right. Right, so me trying to figure out how I'm gonna eat, how I'm gonna keep my road money to $7 so she could keep her house money to a certain number. It was crazy, but that was a part of that process that I needed to really keep me and grow me as a man. If I didn't have that, I would have been wilding out. If I didn't have that as a bar, I would have been tripping.
I just want to say thank God right now. I think that, you know how they say in church, that was let's pause for a praise break.
Yeah.
Just that God is so awesome. He's so good. Now that, you know, we're talking about things that, you know, were fun, you know, weren't funny at that time. It's like, I need this money so our lights don't get cut off. And it was so crazy. Me and my sisters were talking the other day, and we literally laughed. And we just said, we ain't broke no more. And it just, something on the inside was, you know, just joy and gratitude rose up, because I remember the time when I had to look in my purse, and, you know, if I found $20, I was excited because, you know, hey, that meant I had gas money, you know, right? Then it was a real dollar menu, and you could like really get stuff. You could really eat a buck box, not no one burger. You can go and get an entire buck box.
Right.
And like feed your family for $3. Hey, come on, God. For $3. Like you had 2 pieces of chicken, a roll, and mashed potatoes. God, hey.
Over there off of what was that?
Come on, Pennsylvania Avenue. A tongue almost rose up then. The chicken was also good, and it wasn't no little hens. It was a real chicken. Right. I mean, we were full off of $1, but God is good.
Yes, He is. I mean, and that, but that was the process, you know. Yes. And so for me, I think that the dream evolved. The dream went from, hey, I just want to be a superstar comedian. Hey, I just want to be a superstar barber.
Yeah.
I want to be a Christian minister who's ministering comedy. Yeah. And then it evolved to, hey, I want to leave a corporation, a legacy, a business entity that, you know, hundreds in my grand, you know, in my mind's eye, that 100 years after we have gone on,